Good afternoon, everyone. While we wait for everyone to log in and join us, I just wanted to introduce myself and the panelists and outline how today's discussion will unfold. My name is Michael McLeieer, and I'm a 25 years fire service veteran. I'm also the president of Escape Incorporated, a nonprofit organization that provides safe, effective, and economical fire and life safety training to children and adults of all ages. And I'm the former president of the Michigan State Firemen's Association. Today, I'd like to introduce the topic and also introduce the National Volunteer Fire Council. Thank you to everyone for joining us for what I think will be a very interesting discussion about Fire Prevention Week, which is October 4th through the 10th, and how to engage with your community during these unusual times. Typically, Fire Prevention Week is a time for fire departments to connect with their communities, hold open houses, distribute fire prevention materials, and even recruit new volunteers. But COVID-19 means that many fire departments will have to take on a new approach to doing so. This year's Fire Prevention Week theme focuses on preventing fires in the kitchen due to cooking, which is the #1 cause of home fires and home fire injuries. Today's live discussion is brought to you by the National Volunteer Fire Council and is sponsored by California Casualty. Before we begin, I would like to give a brief overview of the NVFC and introduce our panelists. The National Volunteer Fire Council is the leading nonprofit membership association representing the interests of the volunteer fire, EMS, and rescue services. Its mission is to provide a unified voice for volunteer fire and EMS organizations. You can learn more about their programs and initiatives by visiting www.nvfc.org. Now I'd like to introduce our panelists. I'm honored to be joined today by Teresa Neal, Fire Program Specialist and 17-year veteran of the United States Fire Administration. Andrea Vastis, the Senior Director of Public Education at the National Fire Protection Association, and Blaise Harris, a fire and life safety educator at the Rocky Mount, North Carolina Fire Department. This discussion will last about 1 hour, depending on how many questions we receive. And I have some questions in front of me already to start the discussion that I'll be asking our panelists. But we're also taking questions from you, our audience. If you do have any questions, please write them in the comments under this video. We may not get to everyone's question. So if that's the case, please send your questions or question in an email to NVFC Communications Coordinator Matthew Odom at Matthew, MATTHEW, at nvfc.org. And we'll put his email in the video description as well. So the first question I'd like to ask Andrea, tell us about how you picked this year's theme for Fire Prevention Week.
Thank you, Michael, and welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for everyone's time today. So, Fire Prevention Week, the oldest health observance in the United States, each year we look to something that is universal, something that spans geography, economics, demographics, so that we can reach as many people as possible with the opportunity to engage with fire prevention. And this year, even pre-pandemic, we decided cooking. As you mentioned, it's the #1 cause of home fires and home fire injuries. But again, cooking is that kind of thing. No matter what you cook, when you cook, or how you cook, there is always a way to cook with care and prevent fires and burns.
Excellent. My next question is, what specific cooking behaviors continue to increase the risks of fires and burns?
Yeah, and this is a really interesting one because by and large, still about 1/3 of the cooking fires are happening because of unattended cooking, which means people are leaving their frying pan. People are walking away from something that is roasting in the oven. They're getting distracted. They're falling asleep. And so we know that unattended cooking really leads the pack. And that's a major behavior we want to change, right? Watch what you fry, stay in the kitchen, stand by your pan, whatever we have to do to get people to to see that. And then there are the other kinds of behaviors, making sure that you're not letting things that can catch fire too close to the range. What's kind of interesting and feels counterintuitive is the majority of these cooking fires happen on electric ranges. And so we think about the gas range and an actual flame, but those electric ranges get really hot. And so the food inside and the grease inside can get hot, and things next to it can catch fire.
That's great information, Andrea. What shifts did NFPA make in light of the pandemic to promote Fire Prevention Week and fire safety this year?
Different world we live in now, and you know what's interesting, that because we picked cooking pre-pandemic, is with more people at home and more people cooking at home and people on top of each other, anecdotally we're actually seeing more cooking fires in homes. We know departments are responding. The data will catch up to that, but we know this is actually a bigger deal even now more than ever within this. So we didn't have our usual launch at our major conference and expo. We weren't able to do any kind of in-person thing. So we created a video, which our friend Blaise Harris culminates the video with his awesome TikTok. And so we got that out there when we launched the theme June 1st. We made some quick pivots. We were working on a teacher education curriculum, and we quickly pivoted that to a digital curriculum. We have some more digital assets that are going to be uploaded soon to our sparkyschoolhouse.org website to help the community fire and life safety educator be able to do this. And we really upped our social media game, and we engaged across our partners. And we said, look, let's all do this together. Here's a bunch of social media we can do. Let's all use the same hashtags. Let's tag each other. And it was really about amplifying. So our job was to provide what we could for resources and let people bring it out to their communities as they know best.
Oh, that's great. Speaking of resources, Andrea, what kinds of resources does the National Fire Protection Association have for our fire life safety educators?
Thank you. So the best place to start, especially now, is firepreventionweek.org, fpw.org, where we have created for you everything you can plug and play into your efforts, from fillable flyers to proclamations to letters seeking funding. The other thing that we're really happy to be able to provide this year is pre-formatted social media cards. Representing a number of behaviors, representing a number of audiences, and in English, Spanish, and French. So those are the key assets, along with our tip sheets, our downloadable cooking checklist. Those are always the best place to start. Of course, our own public education website has a number of things if you are looking specifically for pre-K to age 2, Learn Not to Burn, or older adult fire and falls with our Remembering When program. So those are all opportunities for you to engage with our assets. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say, you know, our educational messaging desk reference. And
Absolutely.
that, thank you, Teresa. So, you know, USFA doesn't put anything out the door without checking that document. And it's not because of NFPA, it's because of all the people we bring together to work together to say, what is the most up-to-date information? What is the thing people need to know and be able to do? And what is the most appropriate way to say it and message that? And that is on our website as well, our educational messaging desk reference, because that, and we are actually in the process of our 2020 update. So by the end of the year, you'll see some new information as well.
And I know a lot of people would like access to that, and it's nfpa.org/EMAC, and it's a free download. It's a great reference to have, and it is updated, Andrea, like you mentioned, regularly. So it's really something that fire life safety educators and others working with the public should have that readily available at all times.
Thank you. Yes.
You bet. Oh, that's great, Andrea. We're so excited. This is really an awesome opportunity for us to really look at best practices and how we can work through these challenges of our COVID times, and we can certainly utilize these resources. So thank you, and thank you to the NFPA for sharing your time today. Awesome. Let's take a look. Now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Teresa Neal, our good friend from the U.S. Fire Administration. Teresa, what resources does the U.S. Fire Administration have available for fire departments during Fire Prevention Week?
Great, thanks, Michael. Yeah, the thing is that, you know, when we started fires, everyone's fight about 13 years ago. I'm sorry, 7 years ago, in 2013. We've kind of looked at the two areas that really need, that we're seeing the most fatalities for. And so cooking was one of those areas as well. And then we also did smoke alarms. So we created a lot of materials for the cooking fires. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed. Even 7 years ago, you know, from these 7 years, cooking is still the leading cause. From 2016 to 2018, fire departments responded to an average of 189,000 fires due to cooking, with 170 deaths and 3,300 injuries. That's a lot of people who are being affected. And as Andrea said, because people are being stuck inside, we are anecdotally and through the news media, a search that we do each day, we're seeing that there's more cooking fires happening now as well. So this theme, we thought it was wonderful back in February, but we think it's even better now because people really need to understand that there's things they can do to make themselves safer, that it's not, fires don't usually just happen, you know, they don't spring up. There's something we could have done, you know, turn the heat a little bit lower, don't cook so, you know, try to cook so fast, stay in there when you're cooking at high temperatures. And also that our phones, I mean, we try to do so many things. I think that for years, we've always talked about multitasking. Oh, I can multitask. But even working in the field that I work in, how many times have I had something in the oven and got distracted in another room? And sometimes the smoke alarm reminds me that that's where I'm supposed to be. Not for a fire, but just a little bit of smoke. And I think, I know better. You know, this is what I do and I know better. So it's very, very easy to get distracted. So we have on our website flyers that are customizable for your department. You can put your own logos on them. We also have social media cards for cooking, but also for a wide variety of topics on fire and life safety and also not only topics, but for age groups that you might want to reach out to. And there are videos that you can also share on your website through social media that just have safe cooking practices, as well as how to be safe in the kitchen and make everyone in your home safe in the kitchen. And another thing that we have is pictographs. So pictographs are really good to use on social media or in your flyers.
Teresa, can you tell us a little bit more about the pictographs? Why was that something that the U.S. Fire Administration really wanted to collaborate on?
Well, we would always get requests from departments and organizations for translations of our materials or translations of the messaging. And we'd find out that, one, it's quite expensive, as people who are doing it know. It can be very expensive to translate. And then once they would get those messages and they take them into their community, they'd find out that it's a different dialect. Maybe people were not able to actually read the language they spoke. So then the money was kind of wasted. So we sat back and we said, what can we provide as a tool? It's not, you know, we all know no one tool is the be all end all of all things. You know, you can't use the hammer to do all the repairs in your home. So this is a tool for people to use. But we started with the desk reference that Andrea was speaking of. We always start there when we start to build out materials. We took those messages and took a look at them and said, okay, now that we know these great messages, how can we drill down to some nuggets that can be shown pictorially? And we took those messages, we made them into pictures, like a message through a sequence of maybe up to 6 frames, to be able to walk people through the steps so that they could understand. After we did that, we tested those graphics with our target demographic. So we really want pictographs, while they might look like, because they're graphics, they're for children, they're really not for children. These are for people who English is not their first language, or someone who might have low literacy. So we tested it with with people that have lived in the United States less than 5 years and spoke Hindi, Mandarin, or Spanish, 4 different types of Spanish. We tested them with them. We made refinements based on that. Then we went back and tested the refinements just to make sure they were understanding it. And we found that what we have been able to provide to everyone is, is it going to be understood by every single person? Of course not, but it is understood by the majority. So we feel comfortable putting them out there. Let me see. So what we've found with the pictographs is that people have used it as a teaching moment when they're talking to somebody that might not understand them. They have used them to reiterate their fire safety messages. I know that the Massachusetts Department of Fire Services have used some of them to create a new publication they have. It's Fire Safety for Newcomers. Jennifer Meath and Cynthia Willett used those and even expanded on the basic picture to make it speak to the message that they wanted to share. And we've seen on social media where it's really used as a way to reiterate a message that somebody can read, but it's just giving them a pictorial way of seeing it. USFA, we created some templates on our website for flyers, banners, and for door hangers that you can use the pictographs for. You will download the pictograph and then be able to put it in, and then be able to also customize those materials with your own logo for your fire departments. But instead of giving you all the information on how to do that, we have a how-to video on the pictograph site that will really walk you through the pieces that you need to do so that it'll make it easier for you.
That's fantastic, Teresa. Lots of great resources for fire and life safety educators, firefighters, and practitioners to really utilize in their local community and really determine under community risk reduction what are their needs and where does their focus need to be. And this is just a great opportunity to share those great resources. usfa.fema.gov, and then that'll allow everyone to go right to the publications or any of the vast variety of resources that Teresa's talked about. Fantastic.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. We have a question here, and this is going to be an open question to everyone before we go to Blaise for asking him some specific questions. But one of the questions that came in here is, what are some creative ways fire departments can engage with their communities during Fire Prevention Week while keeping themselves and those they serve safe? Some examples would be virtual open houses, things like that. What are your thoughts? Who would like to go first?
I can tell you what we know some of our fire and life safety partners are doing. They're partnering with local food pantries to distribute the materials when people are picking up food. They're partnering with local restaurants to distribute materials while they're picking up food. Their school lunch programs. So for schools that are remote, they're still providing school lunch, or their local boys and girls clubs and their dinner delivery programs. So one of the key ways that people can really do this is use a vehicle that's already established and people are going to your local supermarkets while they're bagging the groceries. You want to reach older adults, go at 7 in the morning at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. Doing those kinds of things has made a huge difference.
That's great. That's a great way to connect with community. Blaise or Teresa, do you have any suggestions?
On social media, one of the things that I saw that I thought was very interesting was that fire departments were doing those story times with their and doing a Facebook Live to their communities, because children are home, parents need a little bit of a break. It gets them to understand that firefighters are friends, and while not every story is specifically about fire safety, they just will listen to them and understand the stories, and then the firefighter can, you know, give those little nuggets of wisdom out there that kids, because we all know that once a firefighter tells a child to go check your smoke alarms, that family's going to check their smoke alarms that evening. So I just thought, when I saw that, I was really, I thought how ingenious that a department decided that that was what they were going to focus on doing to help the community, but also to teach children.
That's a great example.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Blaise, what are your thoughts?
So what I've been seeing a lot of are virtual station tours. It gives families the opportunity just to see the stations and see what the crews are doing and see the apparatus and how the station actually runs during the day. You know, they usually go in and just see it, you know, themselves, but just it's a more intimate view, I believe, because you can actually take more time to look at the truck and look at the equipment that we have and just notice the day to day.
Excellent. I have one question that just came in, a question from Rodney. How can we access the pictograph social media information? Teresa?
Sure. So if you go to our website, if you just scroll down, actually, there is at the very top, there is a introduction, kind of a story, a current events story to talk about pictographs. If you click on that, it's going to take you to the story and then also, or the news article, and then also drop you off onto the pictograph pages. But you can always, you can't find them, you can always reach out to me as well. If they want to put my email address in the comments, I'm happy to help. I'm happy to walk you through it. And if you have any questions.
And the URL link again is usfa.fema.gov. Excellent. All right. Blaise, now I'd like to ask you a few questions here. As a fire and life safety educator, how has COVID-19 made you reevaluate your current face-to-face public education programs?
Thanks, Michael. To be honest with you, I'm a full-on, all-out go in and interact with kids and parents and older adults and everything. And I love doing it. I just love the interaction. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh no, I can't do any of that. And teaching from my desk is the worst for me. So I had to learn I had to back up and punt and learn how to just do things all over. Fortunately, I have some colleagues who I was already working with before, being with Rebecca Thurston and Shauna Allen Smith, and where we did our videos before. So I just got with them and said, hey, let's get with something and just try to do something a little bit more so where we can reach these people. And we got with another friend of ours, Renee Duggins, and we made the Safety Bunch. And so what the Safety Bunch did was we knew the topics that we were going to need to address with people being at home more. One of them was cooking. One of them was home escape plans and the importance of smoke alarms. And so we did a series of videos together and we put them out via the Safety Bunch. And so that helped us put out the information that we needed to put out for people.
That's awesome. Excellent. How have you approached the changing face of public education in this new reality we live in?
Very slowly. Like I said, it took a lot of retooling of how we would do things. One of the biggest things that we would do in our department was our puppet show, and everybody would love coming to the station to see our puppet show. And that's one of those things where I could use my energy and go out and get the students and parents entertained. But like I said, we can't do that now. So what I did was I took and recorded all of our puppet shows and put them on our YouTube page. So now all of our puppet shows are available on our social media. So if teachers want to use them, they can go to our social media on YouTube and click the puppet show, whichever one they want to use. I've also taken the time to do new fire safety songs, like the one yesterday that was posted on our Fire Life Safety Educators and Coordinators page on Facebook. So I use that to promote things that I'm trying to do, but I also go over there and see what other fire departments are doing as well. So I've seen some amazing things up there, and I'm gonna let y'all know I'm taking some of you guys' idea. I'm not going to claim them as my own, but I'm going to use some of those ideas that I've seen because they're amazing. And it's a great resource for fire life safety educators and coordinators just to go up and just get ideas if they are if they getting in a rut and they can't figure out, oh, what I want to do this day, what I want to do this day. It is several different opportunities and several different lessons and activities that we could go through and see what other departments all across the country are doing.
That's excellent, Blaise. And let me go ahead and remind everyone, if you're not a part of that Facebook group, it's called Fire Life Safety Educators and Coordinators. Please join that free group on Facebook. There are numbers of colleagues across the country and even outside of the United States that share best practices, and there's activity daily that's going on. If someone poses a question or has a problem, there's practitioners that are posing solutions that they've overcome those challenges. So let's turn those challenges around to opportunities, and it just works really well. Fire Life Safety Educators and Coordinators. It's a Facebook group, and feel free to join and learn more about best practices, especially during these difficult and challenging times. One more question, Blaise. How do you feel your messaging has changed as a result of COVID-19?
So, Michael, I'm glad you asked that because it hasn't changed because I use the EMAC for everything that I do.
Excellent.
So when I write my songs, I be sure that I get all the proper information and get it in there the correct way. Sometimes getting stuff to rhyme is difficult, but the messaging stays the same. It hasn't changed. We just updated, and made songs and stuff applicable more to COVID-19 and how we would do things with washing your hands and just being just safer in general, and distancing. And so it's for the most part, our messaging has stayed the same. We just had to adapt with the pandemic coming through. So it was an easy transition though.
Super. There's one question that just came in, Blaise, for you, and it's from the Safe Kids of Greater South Haven. Are your videos somewhere the public can access them?
Yes, they are. You can go to our YouTube page or under Rocky Mount Fire Department, but you can also go to our Facebook page. We have social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and it's at Rocky Mount Fire. And everything that I post on our YouTube page shows up on our social media on Facebook too, as well.
Super. One more question that's just come in for you, Blaise. Have you found that being forced to go virtual with your information, has this actually increased information going out to your communities that wouldn't have happened if you weren't forced to do it?
I think the information is still getting out. Fortunately, we've already had we've had programs that were established already. And so we had these relationships with our school systems, and we were already having these relationships and pushing information out through them as well. Now, I think it might be, in some cases, it may be a little difficult because we may not be able to reach our seniors as much as we usually would. But our kids and our adults, we are having success in getting the message out.
That's awesome. I have a question. How are we evaluating our knowledge gain or behavior change when we're able to deliver information virtually? Is there a way that we can share some best practices on evaluation? And I'll open that up to the group.
I think one of the things that we think about behavior change and we think about what it takes to make behavior change, it's usually a multifactorial approach, right? It's not me saying, hey, go get your flu shot. And you're like, yeah, great idea. I'll go get my flu shot, right? There's, when we say to people, put in a smoke alarm, there's 8 decisions you have to make. What kind of smoke alarm? Where do I put it? How do I install it? What kind of battery does it take? It's in, now what? So to be able to go from A to B with behavior change, we put this message out and we saw this change. It's a lot harder to do. And so, but when you have a community effort that has education, plus boots on the ground, dedicated work, plus, some resources where you're tracking maybe the referrals, and then you start to look longer term at the data, you can put some pieces together. The biggest thing is documenting, so you can at least do good process evaluation. You can see what processes are working and getting a person to the next place. You respond to a lift assist. Did they make an appointment with their doctor afterwards? Well, how do you find that out? You've taken the time to make a phone call to say, hi, Mrs. Smith, just want to check in on you. We picked you up off the floor last week. Today we want to hear, how are you doing? What can we do for you? How do we do that? And so those are going to be the ways when you're doing those kinds of community programs to at least document some of that, the interim steps that would get to the full-on behavior change.
That's great. That's excellent. Thank you, Andrea. Teresa or Blaise, do you have anything that you'd like to add as far as evaluation, things you're seeing or that might be useful to our viewers today?
I think that Andrea said it perfect. It is very hard when you're just putting messages out to say, I put out 25 messages and now there's one less fire in my community, but it's all of those other steps that you also have to take to follow through. And usually we don't see change until it's past the time frame of being able to see how effective what we did was. So, I think right now, a lot of it's being done in good faith, that is exactly, this is what people need in a time where they can't do what they would normally do.
Right.
And I think, so timing is the other piece of it too. And, Blaise mentioned about the message hasn't changed, but how we're doing it, correct? So I was once upon a time a communications major, and Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. How we get the message out matters just as much as what we're saying. And so, one of the things that Corona has done for us is it's forced our hand. It's forced us to go digital faster than we were ready for, but we need to go digital, right? Even the older adults of tomorrow, they're all on their smartphones and social media.
Right.
And if we, good education has a multiple way of getting out the message. And it also just speaks to the comprehensive fire and life safety programming, because an awareness campaign does just that. It raises awareness, and you can measure, do people know what you're talking about? But if you want to get to the real behavior change, now you have to add in all those other pieces.
And I think that it's also helped us to remember that we need to limit the amount of messaging that we give to people. People, it's like, what they always say, drinking from a fire hose. People only will take in so much information at one time. And also when Andrew's talking about timing, right now during COVID, people are worried about their health. That's the paramount thing in all of the restrictions and the issues due to this pandemic. This is not the time to give them a sheet of paper with 25 things on it to make them safer from a fire, because there's no capacity for that right now. There's no capacity. So chunking it out into really solid messages like we get from the EMAC, chunking those out and showing them in whatever way, a social media card, a pictograph, anything, even on a flyer, but chunking it out to those small messages and doing it often, you're going to start seeing the messages because it's being repeated over and over and over again. And I think that helps us to see that is way more successful than handing a flyer that has lots of messages on there. When as a society, we are at capacity right now. An election, COVID, all of that, I think at capacity.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, it's like with the chunking, and just seeing it out there. We actually have some of our messaging placed on a flashing billboard at our local Imperial Center. So it's a message that comes out when they advertise, different plays and stuff that may coming out when they're opening up. We got a messaging going on right there. And somebody passes that, it's like, that's something I need to think about. Okay,
yeah, right.
Don't cook when I'm sleepy, or check my smoke alarm and everything. It's not it's not forcing it down there. It's just putting a little nugget for them just to remember for later on.
Yep.
This is great advice, absolutely, and definitely something that we want to make sure that we give those opportunities to those viewing here today. Shannon W. has a question. Any advice for, quote, slow houses and engaging our communities better? Is there a way not to provide the information, not just to provide the information, but also increase participation and interest?
So can I piggyback? I'm on attack this one. All right.
Sure.
So the video that I released yesterday took place at a slow station, at a slow house. And I knew that station doesn't get a lot of, they don't get a lot of activity. So I said, this is a nicer station. It's a slower station. So let's go get some of these guys involved. And you saw from the video, they were all into it. And that was the thing. And it was just, I wanted to showcase the different sides of our fire department. These guys might not get as much attention as everybody else does because they're not the big house. They're not the busy house, but they matter just as much. And from my opinion, it was a hit, just from seeing their interactions. And I think the more that we do that and get more of our people involved and not make it so much as a chore, but make it fun, then I think you have more participation going through. It's not about, because I think a lot of fire departments and a lot of personnel are just like, oh, I gotta do this again. I gotta go and do this one more time. Why? But if you have people who actually, who love what they do and put the effort in and show, oh, okay, this can be fun, just getting this information out to people and doing it in a way that makes people want to get involved, you won't have a problem with it.
Blaise, I think what's interesting about that too is, it's about utilizing your resources, right? And we're so strapped. So this is a great example of, we utilize internal resources, we utilize our community partnerships and the people who are already out there, so we talk about increasing the community participation and interest. Again, meet them where they are.
Yep.
Need to bring meet them where they are. And we had actually done some market research at NFPA, and we found these things called windows of opportunity, and it's pretty intuitive, right? When are people more willing to hear what you have to say or engage, look for information? When they're changing residence. I'm getting my first apartment, I'm upsizing, I'm downsizing. A change in my living arrangements, maybe loss of a partner, no longer an empty nester, everybody's back in, right? All of a sudden you're trying to renegotiate the space, same space, but a whole different way of using it. Things like caring for children. So whether you're the formal or informal caregiver, that's a big piece of it as well. We know that older adults, as they approach with mobility issues, there's a heightened sense of, I can't do the things I could do before. And then the salient fire experience, which is, this happened to your neighbor. How do we not let it happen to you? And so that again goes back to putting those pieces together of what motivates people, what interests people, what are they interested in? I know you have all this stuff you want to say to them and get out to them, but what is valuable to them? And that's where we meet them, and then we go along together.
Absolutely.
And I thought your idea in the beginning, Andrea, that you were talking about, you want to reach older adults that you think you're not getting through social media, then go to the store early in the morning when they have, the older adults or people who might have, underlying issues that they don't need to be around the general population. I mean, that's a great idea. Or, especially during fire prevention week, if you can talk to your pizza delivery people or whatever, if we give you these little, flyers, very short, about our fire department with just a couple nice pictures on there or whatever, and then ask them to put them in the bag with everything else. Grocery stores, everybody goes to the grocery store. So, lots of times my small grocery store will put a little flyer in the bag when they're bagging up the groceries anyways. So those are ways to think about, how can I just, if you want to get it in their hands, or make them aware. But obviously, what you're talking about, Andrew, that finding that niche of how does that help somebody? When is it that people will think about making changes to their life or changing the way that they do things? thinking
And
that through so that your message is not just given out, but it's what they need at that time.
And we do know that the public's interest is at peak during and soon after that emergency. The longer after that emergent event, people aren't as, not necessarily interested, but they're not as focused on prevention messaging or best practices and actions they can take to prevent an incident from happening to them or their family. So it's really important. Again, the educational messaging desk reference is a great resource, not only to use in your public education outreach, but also as a public information officer, working with the media, being able to utilize the standard messaging, because consistent messaging is much more effective. And as Teresa mentioned, if we don't overwhelm people and throw all the messages that we know at one time, we're much more successful for people to digest what they feel is relevant for their family.
And one other plug for the desk reference, I just want to say, what I usually tell people is that if I'm going to go do something, think about like the dieting world. You jump out into the dieting world and you get told, I need to go keto, I need to go low fat, I need to do low carb, and you get bombarded with all of these messages that are, everyone believes what they're saying, but they're just too much. It becomes noise to the point that you step back and go, never mind, I'm not even feel like it anymore. So our people are the same way when it comes to fire safety messages. Firefighters have an abundance of great information to tell people, but if they're telling them one thing and NFPA is telling them one thing and USFA is telling them another thing, most people feel like they don't know anybody who's had a fire and they will never have a fire. So you start giving them a lot of different messages, then they just, never mind, I'm not interested, or it's too much. So having those messages that we know that it's not just, USFA is part of the process. There's lots of national organizations. There's people who are out in the field who give us feedback, as well as, when we do the call for updates, we get information in from people. So, it's not there's one person sitting in an office trying to figure out, what do I want people to say? This, we talk about it and we check and see what kind of data is out there so that you can feel completely secure with, when I give this message out, it has gone through testing, it has gone, people have used it. And so we know that it's gone through that, and it's a consensus of organizations. And that is beneficial to your consumer. It's beneficial because they are getting the same message from no matter who they speak to. And then they can feel, good about it. They can feel like, oh, this is, important. It has that gravitas that goes with it, that they can get behind it. So we use it for everything. And I would just love to see all of us use it, because then our messages are very, very clear to the people that are, we want to receive them.
Absolutely. We have another question. This one came in from Heather S. In addition to utilizing social media, what other forms of communication have you found successful in distributing information and ensuring it is utilized, or is a utilized resource during the pandemic?
So again, there's the chance, it depends on your audience, right? Are you trying to reach kids? Are you trying to reach parents, older adults? It's funny because podcasts, right, are becoming more listened to and more, I hear all the time different people saying, oh, I listen to this podcast. So are there local podcasts? Again, trying to get those interviews. Some of it is about, again, timing, right? Pitching something to your local media. Hey, would you like to do a story on this? We'd love to share this with your viewers. And then again, what else is in the community? Where do your places of worship fall into play here? And places like, and I know this depends because the pandemic is, the hairdresser. There have been a number of, not want to open a can of worms here, but honestly, there are so many ways in which, distributing information, because that's you're sitting there, you're going to be there for a while, you're engaging. And Teresa, I think it might have been USFA who had worked with the Visiting Nurse Association to and Meals on Wheels, right? So
those are always our targets to get them to start.
who's out there and what can they bring? You know, what one thing do you want that target audience to know? You know, like, what one thing can that Meals on Wheels person engage in a conversation? Have you tested your smoke alarm? Or we train them, while I'm here, I can test your smoke alarm. Those kinds of things. Those are some of the ways in which we can do it. It's not a perfect situation, and you know, none of us have the $1 million budgets to put the TV commercials on, unfortunately. So we get what we can out of it.
And even when the pandemic, we start getting those, you know, we have vaccines or whatever, our world has changed. It's not going to go back to the way that it used to be. You know, there will be changes completely, no matter what happens in the future. So, so don't think that, well, we can't invest in this, or we're not really going to start this program because it's going to go back to normal. It will never be normal again, because we've learned something. Every time as a society, we go through something, you know, catastrophic or life-changing, the next thing is it's new. It's never back to where it was. And we just celebrated or remembered 9/11, and we can all say things have completely changed since then. Our world is completely different, and we have to remember it's going to be different after this or as we move on. And so really investing and talking to your community, investing that time when you can to see what they need and what, you know, the risk assessments that you can do to really what is our risk, and all of those pieces, they are really going to be helpful for you in the future, because it's not going to be, oh, we're going to get to go into classrooms all the time. Maybe not, but it might be it'll look different in the future. And so you're really just investing in your future by starting some of these programs.
And one of the things I want to add, working in, also I have a broadcasting media background, working in that field as well as being in the fire service, is kind of dovetail off from what Andrea said. If we develop those partnerships early and often with our broadcasters, radio and television, they are looking for quality content. And by that, I mean, they're looking for those human interest stories that the local fire department is connecting with their community, engaging. And where you're going to be most successful is not just through news, which we can still partner with assignment desk editors, producers, and even the anchors or the reporters, but also check with your marketing department of your broadcasting arm and see if they have a community affairs division or department, because a lot of our human interest causes and a lot of our passionate causes that we're trying to change behavior and increase safety and improve the quality of life, those are much more successful outside of the news brand. Because then we're only able in news to get a 10 to 15 second soundbite, where we may be able on a lifestyle show to feature 5 to 6 minutes of information that's going to be engaging, and the media is going to know our target audience, whether it's male, whether the age groups and so forth, because they do all of those demographics. They know how to target that, and the marketing department of the broadcasters have the background. They don't need to be from the fire service or emergency services, but they have the background to help you with the engagement and also measure the results.
Absolutely. They have the audience, you have the knowledge.
Yep. Right.
The expertise.
And the big thing is, once we develop those relationships, always make sure you are available, because they are going to reach out to you at a moment's notice. And that's where the desk reference, the educational messaging desk reference, and other tools out there need to be at your available ready, so that you have those talking points available at any time. Are there any other thoughts that any of the panelists have that they want to share? I think we've had a really broad-based knowledge of information here, and it looks like we are running low on time. So any other questions that have come in will be able to be sent to Matthew at nvfc.org, and then we can go ahead and answer those offline. And it's a good time for us to really kind of close things out. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here. Teresa Neal, Andrea Vastis, and Blaise Harris, thank you for your time
Thank
and your
you.
commitment
Thank you.
to making sure we're providing the viewers today with great opportunities that they can connect with their community. And I thank everyone else for joining us here today. I also want to give a special thank you to California Casualty for sponsoring today's live event. I think we had a very interesting discussion about Fire Prevention Week, and hopefully we provided you with creative ways to engage your community. If you'd like to learn more about Fire Prevention Week 2020, you can find a link to the site in this video's description. We'll also include a link to the United States Fire Administration's website and the National Fire Protection Association's website as well. And just a reminder, if we didn't answer your question, just please email NVFC's communication coordinator, Matthew Odom, at matthew@nvfc.org. With that, on behalf of my panelists, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy day to join us here today. And we hope you all have a great afternoon and, more importantly, a successful Fire Prevention Week connecting with your community. Thank you all.